Good afternoon, and welcome to the Voice of Wisdom. With over 60 years of experience as an investment banker, entrepreneur, venture capitalist, securities analyst, and advisor, Morty Davis is a Wall Street legend. In addition, Mr. Davis is an outstanding economist and highly articulate, incisive, and very entertaining political analyst and strategist. He's Wall Street and capitalism personified. The over 400 companies for which he has raised more than $3 billion over the years have created a countless number of jobs and exciting new products. Through the Voice of Wisdom, Mr. Davis explores, analyzes, and debates the most topical economic and social issues facing our world today. Joining Mr. Davis today for a discussion on the news making the headlines is Len Carter. Len is an investment banker, business consultant, and private investor. And now, Mr. Davis and Mr. Carter.
Welcome back. It's Wednesday, 6:30 in the evening, and we have a regular date. You're my favorite date. You contribute so much to the success and popularity of this podcast. So I want to thank you and repeat again, as I always do, how much I love you, how you're my favorite people after my family, my best friends, my favorite people on this universe. And without further ado, we're going to leap into this week's heartbreaking breaking news. Heartbreaking and breaking news, because the nature of this podcast, maybe we should change it, is we review the events of the week, and especially those that make the headlines, because the media decides these are the popular programs that would attract the audience, and that they assume, and I assume as well, that that's what people want to hear about and learn about what's happening and what the prognostication is from these unfolding events as to the future impact these announcements or these breaking news will have on our country and indeed our world. So let's get right on. Again, as I always do, I must apologize to you because by its nature, this podcast, in discussing the news that makes the headlines, deals mostly with the negatives that society produces and experiences every week. In other words, what makes the headlines? Mass murders, especially where some lunatic or some perverse human being is attacking a class of 6-year-old kindergarten students of first grade students, and kills most of them or all of them, plus their hardworking and innocent teachers. And so that's sure to make the headlines, because that's something that really gets to us. It's so unbelievable that we have evil madmen like that would perpetrate such actions. So that's one of the leading headlines usually. And in the United States, we have one such event, mass shootings, every single day, on average, every single day of the year. more than 365 over the course of the year. But the others that barge into our listening habits, our network programs, our cable sports or news or different entertainments that were married to our televisions, and these media leaders feel are important enough to break into the news and alert us right that second in the midst of our most listened to programs. It's heartbreaking. But that's only one aspect of that occurs just about every week. We have pandemics, terrible illness breakouts and malady breakouts throughout the world. We have fires in California and wherever, massive fires that do so much damage and ruin people's lives, where they lose their homes and everything that they've had ever saved that has irreplaceable value, memories for them. And so the fires, the floods, the I can't even think all the things that go wrong. The tsunamis, where the ocean floods back into the people's homes. It's impossible to even describe all the tragedies of that make the headlines and break our hearts. I know it does that to me and has the effect of depressing me. And so if you're at all similar in any respect to me and my values, it certainly does the same thing to you. So I start off by apologizing for bringing you depressing outcomes by reporting these horrendous evil deeds that one human or many humans perpetrate on others. Wars, all kind of military actions throughout the world, the loss of lives of especially young military that are in many cases involuntary in that they're drafted by their governments, and even voluntary because they're being patriotic and thinking they're doing something great, which is great, to defend their fellow citizens and their country. So I start off with this apology, but I can't change the nature of this podcast because it deals with the breaking news events of the week.
But you do have a way to help people overcome that tragedy, that depression.
Yeah. Len Carter is my guest again today, a genius that I'm privileged and pleased to have join us. He does that as a favor to me because normally he gets paid enormous sums by major corporations and governments throughout the world for his wisdom and his advice on their strategies and planning and how to run their companies and improve their results. So What did you interrupt me with?
We talk about the bad things in the world every week, but one way that
Oh,
you can
yes.
somewhat
Yeah,
counter or mitigate that
yeah.
depression would be
Len was
get the book.
very generous in mentioning my bestseller, the book that, if you have your screen lit up with my presence and Len's presence, of the latest book that I published called Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back. One of the most important books, in my judgment, that you will ever come across, because it affects the daily life, your daily life, and the daily life of all your loved ones, all that are dear to you, your best friends, because it tells you how to be, I have to say it all the time, how to be happy, but not in the happiness sense that we think of in this country, where you're on addictive drugs or liquor or vodka. So I have the book here to advise you to how to deal with the negatives and the things that will depress you inevitably, and encourage you to have a much more uplifting life, contented life, not one where you're banging each other on each other's back and laughing and celebrating, and then soon as the effects of that drug or that fix wears off, you're more miserable than ever. You have hangovers and headaches and nausea. So I'm talking about contentment. And so I have it in front of me to advise you to run out and get a copy of it, because based on not only my experience, but all the people that have written to me who bought the book or received it as gifts, saying how much it's improved the quality of their life and the quality of their relationships with their spouses, their children, their friends, their neighbors. So, and I have arranged, because I have such popular exceptions and endorsements, so much so that I've been offering now for a year, more than a year, if you acquire this book, buy it or get it as a gift, and you don't find that it's the best book you ever received or the best present you've ever come across to improve your life, I will return your purchase price. You send me a purchase slip with a purchase slip of the person that gifted it to you, and I will send you back not only what they paid or what you paid, but double. So right away, you're in for a big profit, as long as you don't run out and buy 40 books to get rich on my expense. But so far, nobody's taken me up on that. It's better than that, a lot of things that are promoted on television, including drugs and what is it called?
Supplements?
Supplements that say it's so good. But if you don't find it so, send us your purchase slip and we'll return your purchase price. Not as I do, double your purchase price. And you can keep the product just as I say. I'll send you back double your purchase price, and you can keep it. So my gift to you, And it is a gift, even though you may be paying for it initially, but you could get your money back if you don't fully appreciate it and find it very helpful in improving your life, making your life more content, right? So without spending any more time on my book, I would urge you to run out as soon as this program's over. I don't want you to leave this exciting program, but as soon as the program is over, or as soon as thereafter as you can, don't delay it, because once you delay something, it often gets postponed and never addressed.
Like they say, justice delayed is justice denied.
Yeah,
Happiness delayed is happiness denied.
right. Not only that, sadly, in our capitalist society, profits have reached a point, as is appropriate under capitalism, to where companies address far more their total sales and their profitability than the safety of their products and the improvement of people's lives. That's a reality, but a very sad commentary. So now that I addressed a solution to the headache I'm
About to give
going
you.
to I'm going to provide to you as it affects me, the sad news, the depressing news, the hopeless human behavior in terms of acts that are literally horrendous and evil. So, without further ado, I want to invite our prominent guest who's graduated from 3 of the major universities in the United States, Cornell, where he was a major Ivy League school, where he received a degree in electrical engineering with the highest honors. And then he went on to the school that he and I both attended, the best business school in the world, not only in the United States, the Harvard Business School, where he graduated with honors, as I'm pleased to say I did as well. I graduated with distinction. And finally, he graduated, got an advanced degree from California University that's produced more billionaires and more high-tech companies than any other university in the world, any other institution in the world. And that is the Stanford University, where he graduated again with the highest honors. So I'm thrilled that he's willing to rejoin me without any compensation, in spite of the fact that his time sells by his employer or by his company for very great remuneration, thousands of dollars, major corporations and governments, leading governments throughout the world. So, Len, why don't we start off and deal with this week's news? I hope we can find something uplifting in the news.
Thank you, Morty. Hopefully that will be the case. So we've been talking about the big headline in the news cycle these past few weeks, and the headline continues to be the big headline, which is the war going on in Iran, coming into the third week now, and a lot's happened and continues to happen. So I'd like to have some of your thoughts on some of these issues first. So why don't we take from a big issue at the top from the leadership point of view. When this initial supreme leader was killed on day one,
the supreme leader of
Iran,
Iran,
Ayatollah Khomeini, was
and
killed.
41 of his leading cohorts.
Then his son became was chosen the next supreme leader, Mujtaba Khomeini. So, but we haven't seen him in public, haven't seen any live appearances anywhere, any videos, only a picture of him like a cardboard cutout. So some people think maybe he's really dead.
Yeah.
What do you think? You think that's...
I think that's a likely truism, although the latest announcement I've heard is that he's been shipped to Russia or transferred to Russia for treatment.
Medical care. I heard he's got some leg injury or amputation or something. So you think that they'll just continue the appearances remotely, or appearances in the form of pictures or already written out statements?
Well, it hasn't been resolved. Trump is trying to play a major role in seeing that no one like the Khomeini or his group takes over and runs it, because that wouldn't be a worthwhile end result of this endeavor.
Yep. So we'll see. I mean, he's definitely not 100%. So otherwise, he probably would have been on the some sort of video.
Yeah, and like everything else in our current day, when I get up in the morning, the first thing headline is related to Trump. Either some action that he's taken with Congress or some action that he hasn't taken that closes down the government and stops paying critical salaries to people that fly the airlines and keep them safe, and all our civil service and so forth. As a matter of fact, talking about Trump, I got a recording from one of my leading investor, leading in the sense that he's literally extremely wealthy and accomplished, successful. He owns more nursing homes in the United States, I think, than any individual. His name is Michael Melnick, a wonderful human being, somebody I love. But anyway, he attended a fundraising session with Trump, a dinner. And during the course of the dinner, he walked up to Donald, to the president, and asked him, what does he think about Morty Davis? That's me. He knew that Trump is a good friend of mine. And so Donald was kind enough to send me a copy of the recording where he says, Morty Davis is the greatest guy in the world and phenomenal and the best guy on Wall Street. He couldn't be more complimentary. The president couldn't of my being, of my life, just wonderful. And he was nice enough to record it and send it to me. He's usually the source of all the news. It's like a miracle.
That's
in
true.
terms of entertainment, in terms of making the news.
He's in the headlines when he wasn't the president. Now, as the president, even more so. Double whammy. So, a lot of times in war, it's a game of strategy as much as it is just brute force. And sometimes, the actions you take to put pressure to do certain things to change a country's situation beyond just like brute force with bombs and troops. And one of the things that we see here, right up until now, it's been primarily brute force, bombs and attacks, brute force. But we saw last week that the U.S. is bombed the military parts of Kharg Island. So Kharg Island, as you know, is this little island off of Iran's coast where something like 90% of its oil is processed and flows through. So it becomes a strategic stronghold for, an enemy to seize. In fact, potentially doing a lot more harm to a country than just destroying buildings and blowing up military bases. If 90% of a country's economy, and most of Iran's economy is a petroleum economy, I mean, it's, sanctioned, but that doesn't mean they don't make money from oil. They do. It goes to China and Russia illegally. So here we have Kharg Island being militarily disabled. There's something like 2,500 Marines on their way to the Gulf. They don't say what they're going to be used for, but it wouldn't surprise me if, occupying that island would be something that would be a good use of Marine power.
I think so far.
What do you think?
I think so far the president has indicated he doesn't plan to send troops on the ground in Iran or its any of its neighbors.
So what do you think these 2,500 Marines on their way are going to do?
They're going to be tourists.
Maybe they should. I mean, strategically, sending in hundreds of thousands of soldiers like we did in Iraq is one thing. But special forces, special ops, things like that, to take a tiny island, that's not, the same thing. And if you control 90% of the country's economy, that could play a very strong negotiating chip. Interestingly, they haven't, although obviously could have, they haven't destroyed or damaged any of the oil infrastructure on Kharg Island, just the military parts, which again, militarily make sense because when you want to remove the threat of retaliation or defense, so you blow up the runways and the military aspects.
Well, we haven't
leave the important stuff because
we haven't used our troops on the ground to destroy any part of this war effort.
But I mean, we easily could have, and Trump also said, and by actions proved, that they haven't been targeting any oil infrastructure. I think he realizes that, that sort of long-term damage is not something that is a good idea, because if the war ends quickly, then production could resume quickly. But if you destroy refineries and oil wells and all these things, pipelines, those could take years and years to rebuild.
Not only that, the negatives not only redound to Iran, but to the Western countries, the United States, and so forth. So even though it hurts our enemy, like all wars,
right,
everybody's a loser.
Yep. So speaking of what constitutes a victory, and yes, President Trump has said at this point his intention is not to use physical troops on the soil. One of the goals is to ensure that Iran never has a nuclear weapon. Do you think, and that's so presumably victory would be that goal being achieved, or one of the goals, that being one of them. But do you think that you can have victory without removing or eliminating the enriched uranium, which is already in the country, buried under, mountains of rubble at this point? So can you have a true victory without removing that enriched uranium?
Not by definition, because what Iran has made very clear is that they're striving to achieve a nuclear bomb so they could destroy Israel, and that Israel being the smaller Satan, and the United States the major Satan. And they've announced that. They say, we want to destroy Israel, and we want to destroy the United States.
So do you think you can extract that uranium with just special forces, or do you need? Because think about it, if it's buried in hundreds of feet or however deep it is, that's like a real excavation project.
Clearly,
you need to bring in, equipment.
It's not easily achievable, because we just finished a couple of weeks ago the amazing bombing of their nuclear facilities that we're aware of, and now we're finding that they're prepared to rebuild to the point where they're only a few weeks
I think
away from achieving a bomb.
The predicament that the president's in is, and it's a very difficult one, because to actually extract the uranium, I think, is by force something that will require a huge amount of effort, people, construction, equipment, and to defend against attack. I mean, in a hostile area is I think almost impossible. So the alternative is
and even if they do
a negotiated removal, where the new government agrees to allow that extraction or extracts it itself. So I think in order to have victory, I think that you can't do that with special forces. I think it's require just a more friendly government.
Even if the United States was successful in eliminating the nuclear materials, so that they can't make it.
Right. There's more where that came from.
Yeah. There's no way that because witness what happened. The President Trump said we obliterated.
Right.
And a few weeks later,
the tough part's going to be when you've said you're not going to do that, when you said you're not going to bring in troops, but that's the only way to really achieve the goal, then what do you do? Trump has to change his mind. Then you also have the issue with, the Congress having to fund whatever approach Trump takes. So he could, as commander in chief, yes, he could say he wants to do this. He orders the troops to go, but at some point they have to get funding from Congress. Just like, the reason we were able to stay 20 years in Afghanistan is because the Congress kept appropriating funding for the troops and for the efforts year after year after year. In this case, if changing the government requires, an extended, expensive effort, I don't know if Trump's going to get that from this Congress. In which case, it's a possible ending might be just kind of like an Afghanistan ending where they just withdraw the troops, and like Vietnam, when we left Saigon, it just fell shortly after the troops left. And like when we left Afghanistan, the Taliban took over as soon as we left. So it was back to where it started.
In Korea, the same.
So that's where, I think this could not be such a great ending, because you really require a resolve, and I don't know if we have resolve.
It's not like
this Congress has resolve.
It's not like a movie where at the end they figure out how to bring in, or the Greeks with their Deus Ex Machina, where it's so complicated that finally they just bring down the gods to resolve it.
One of the other things that you often see in wars is allies joining with allies. Trump said that NATO faces a, quote, very bad future, was his quote, very bad future, if allies did not help in Iran. What? And then, we saw several countries, in fact, I don't know, have any NATO country that's agreed to join in some way, even if it's bringing in naval vessels just to keep the security in the Gulf of Straits of Hormuz. So far, I think only some of the Gulf nations have said they're willing to help with the security in the Gulf, in the Straits. So, what's your take on that? Do you think that NATO is doing the right thing by saying it's not our war? We didn't get involved in this. We weren't part of it, and we want to stay out. Or do you think that they should in some way help, whether and what that help would be? I don't know. What do you think it should be, if you do think they should help? Naval escorts, political cover, sanctions, enforcement. What could or should they do in this situation? Or just do what Trump's saying is, we don't need you, we'll do it ourselves? What do you think?
Well, what I think is less important than what they've expressed.
Well, do you think NATO?
Well, the NATO.
Do you think NATO is doing the right thing by saying it's your war, or do you think they should help?
The head of the EU announced that it's not something that they're prepared to get involved with.
Do you think that that's the right thing for them to say, or should they help? I mean, they are part of NATO. They are an ally. We help defend Europe against the Russians in Ukraine. Right? That doesn't affect us nearly as much as it affects Europe. Why don't they help?
Well, because they've had their fill of entanglements that never end. They were involved with Afghanistan.
True.
Where they lost very
But if
significant
true.
treasure and
But
blood.
if fixing Iran is good for us, why isn't it good for them too? And the same argument that you make for our going in and doing this to make the world a better place and a safer place, doesn't that hold for them too?
Well, that's a really terrific question, because all of these years where Iran has been so hostile to its neighbors and to, even fellow Muslim countries, and particularly attacking the United States wherever our troops have been, in Lebanon, and terrible losses, and we did nothing, So I think the attitude has developed that they can't do anything successfully to end this evil empire.
But we can. I mean, it
Well,
just seems like the same
no.
rationale for us should apply to them.
Trump feels we can, but they feel the evidence is such that we've been attacked over the years many, many times by Iran, and we have done nothing. They don't.
Well, that's true, and maybe their soldiers weren't attacked in Beirut like ours were, and maybe their embassy wasn't taken over the way ours was, and maybe they don't chant death to Germany like they chant death to the U.S., but they know that a nuclear Iran is bad for the world, and they have an economic interest because they're paying $100 a barrel for oil just like we are, and they're in fact bigger trouble because so much of their energy is natural gas. We make most of our natural gas here. So we don't have a shortage, we just have high prices. They're going to have a shortage and high prices. So as we also know, a lot of times war is justified on economic grounds.
Yeah.
And so if a time there were economic grounds for, helping to safeguard a key oil artery, it would be now, I would think. So I think, it's very tough. They're in a jackpot because they don't want to get involved. They know if they do, then they open themselves up for retaliation and terrorism and who knows what else.
Worse than that, I think the fear is that the extent that you expand the effort to many countries, you're launching a world war, and that they're reluctant to get involved in. NATO was supposed to protect against.
On the other hand,
just like the UN was.
On the other hand, solidarity can often be a powerful tool, and when the enemy sees splinters and wedges and fractions among what were allies, that benefits them. They're loving the fact that Europe doesn't want to get involved, that the U.S. is increasingly isolated in this. They're loving that. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that one. It's tough. It's very tough because...
To me, it's always been a puzzle, really, that I never understood. That here we're the most powerful nation, the most militarily capable nation in the world, and we let this little country, I mean, it's not a little country, but relatively speaking, it's, play bully against us, and we do nothing.
Yeah, well,
we've done
90 million
nothing.
people is not a little country, and if a lot of them support the government, their government, or what they want to do against the U.S., that's a very difficult situation to deal with, because how do you, without hundreds of thousands of troops, subdue, detain, manage, govern, occupy a country of 90 million people.
How do you avoid attacking a country that takes over your embassy, takes your people and Jimmy Carter sends a few troops to the right outside Iran to try to resolve it, and they get a few shots at them and they disappear. And ever since then, we've never made even the slightest effort. It's inconceivable to me that we behave not like a powerful nation, not that strength leads to peace.
And we don't go after civilians the way we used to, right? I mean, we bombed civilians in Germany, we bombed Japan.
Every war.
Not here. I mean, to win this war might require, civilian targeting, but I don't think the U.S. has the resolve to do that.
They're letting Iran do that for them. Iran has been killing
its own people.
Their own people.
True.
As a matter of fact, the first instance that Trump showed his desire to be involved was he said, we're going to go in and defend against the ruthless behavior against their own citizens.
So if you think about economic rationale for war, one big player here who has an economic incentive is China. So putting Europe aside, do you think that China should help in the Strait of Hormuz, if only for their own self-interest, to get badly needed oil from Iran? I mean, you would think they have a strong incentive because they're going to be in big trouble getting oil, helping to keep...
So far, China has been capable of surviving with access to Russian oil, and they're one of the most advanced in terms of alternative energy. So they suffer less than a lot of other...
But I think, I don't know the numbers, but I think they have been getting a lot of oil, black market oil from Iran. And if that goes away, that will have a material impact on their economy. We are actually, I think, less dependent than China because we, unlike in the 70s, we have a much closer or even energy sufficiency where we don't need to import oil. We're just going to pay higher prices because prices are going to be set globally. So even if we don't need to import 1 barrel of oil, we're still going to be paying the same price as anyone else.
It's sad to say, but China is nowhere near as belligerent a nation as the U.S. is. And more than that, they don't choose, as the United States does, to be a policeman for the whole world, a role that the UN was supposed to take on to avoid future wars. It's totally wasteful.
Well,
we should kick the UN out of the
But in this case, this
States.
Iran conflict, I don't think you're saying, is a job, a police job. It's a reaction to years of attack. So we didn't.
But it hasn't been. They've been attacking us for years and years.
So it's not. In this case, the U.S. is not being the policeman of the world.
No.
We are defending.
It's only as Iran has evolved to the near access, the imminent access to a nuclear, they say, a few weeks maybe.
Yeah, well, that's what they told.
So that changed the equation dramatically. What?
That's what they told Steve Witkoff. We've got material to make 11 bombs or something, they said. I mean, Talk about antagonizing your enemy, right?
Yeah, these negotiations are a joke.
What do you think about the effects or the implications or strategy behind releasing oil from the strategic petroleum reserves, and also easing some sanctions on Russian oil, which we put in place to punish Russia. But now all of a sudden we have someone bigger to punish, so we're going to go a little easier on Russia and let them sell some oil.
I think releasing oil from the reserve that we prepared for emergency is appropriate because this is an emergency. And also letting Russia distribute some oil is in a way self-serving because that oil calms the economies of all of these nations.
True, except it gives, it benefits Russia economically, which is the purpose of the original sanction, to hurt their war machine and to make it harder for them to maintain, their belligerence in Europe. So
we keep saying the war machine of Russia and China, but really the biggest war machine since the end of the Second World War has been the United States. The United States has launched more wars than any country or any combination of countries, which is unbelievable. And it's based on the amazing rewards that the United States feels it benefits from the defense industry, defense production. Every state, every congressman, now they call it the War Department, but votes 100% for all the defense spending. There's no bill that hasn't passed that has increased defense spending by people saying we're spending too much, or Congress saying we're spending too much on defense. Remarkable. That's what Eisenhower warned against. He said that the power of the
military-industrial
complex. And he was right. Every other president, and he was a war, he was a general and a leading player in resolving the Second World War successfully. So you would think he would have been one of the leaders. But I used to think he didn't do anything because no wars occurred and he couldn't be a hero during his... And yet he recognized how powerful this lobby is and this tendency of the United States to go all out to spend defense.
So it's
not defense spending, it's offense spending too.
If you were the president, would you ask China to help keep the Straits of Hormuz open, or would you?
I would definitely ask, because there's no harm in asking. But I wouldn't expect them to do it for the United States. If it's good for China, they would do it. But it is good for
China. You don't think it's good enough for China?
They've been surviving well without it.
I mean, that's.
They're like,
I guess that
the punishment of the West serves.
Whenever,
but they haven't gone to war against anybody, as far as I know, ever.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, I think
they didn't start the Second World War.
No, but there've been. I'm not an expert in Asian history, but I think there have been plenty of wars. I think the fact that they look, any person, any country always makes a decision weighing their own advantages, disadvantages,
Right.
benefits to consequences. So the fact that they're not doing that would support what you're saying, in that it would help them if the straits were open, but not enough to do it, right? It's like we do, anytime we make a decision to do something, if there's benefits and consequences, we weigh that. And in this case, I'm sure they're doing the same thing, and they came to the conclusion that there aren't sufficient benefits to helping out, so we're not going to do it.
China, to its credit, in my view, is run like a successful business. In other words, they do planning, 5-year planning and so forth. They don't suddenly make decisions based on what's happening this week or next week. And so they don't get involved in these skirmishes that can broaden and affect their... And it's been very successful because they've gone from being a peasant country of all agricultural workers and no real advanced production. And so they don't deviate from that.
Yep.
They stick to the plan.
We are about out of time, so I'm going to ask one last question that every week I think we've asked or talked about, and we'll continue, I think, to ask the same question every week, which is, at this point today, and we can ask this same question every week because a week from now it's going to be different as it was a week ago. Do you think there's any possible diplomatic off-ramp at this point, or is this just, are we...
Absolutely not.
At this point?
No, we had extensive discussions. Whitcomb is his name? Witkoff and Jared Kushner. And there was no compromise. Even now they say, we're not giving up our nuclear, what is it? Materials to make a bomb. They're not, negotiations are meaningful if both sides, or one side wants it more and the other side goes along.
So that's where we are 3 weeks into it. We'll see. We'll ask the same question next week, and maybe the answer will be the same, maybe it won't. But thank you again for...
Is it over?
Yep, it's over.
Oh, when we're having fun, time flies.
Yep.
Anyway, thank you for being with us this week. I love you. I wish you all the best of everything, every single day of your life. So I look forward to seeing you same time next week, 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday. God bless you. Stay healthy, and my best wishes for everything great for you and all your loved ones. Bye.